Your shadow isn't ruining your life, your avoidance is. The part you hate in yourself is the exact part holding your power. And in the next minutes, you'll learn how to turn that darkness into transformation. You've been trying to stay positive, stay composed, stay in control. But every time you bury a real emotion, your unconscious gets denser, heavier, louder. That's why you can look successful on the outside and still feel at war inside. Here's the solution, and I'll say it plain. You don't defeat the shadow, you integrate it. You bring it into conscious life, little by little, until it stops hijacking your triggers and starts feeding your healing. Carl Jung warned that what isn't embodied becomes blacker and denser. So if you've felt more reactive, more anxious, more numb, or strangely exhausted lately, it's not random. It's your shadow asking for attention in the only language you haven't ignored yet. And once you understand what it's really trying to say, you'll stop fighting yourself like an enemy and start leading yourself like someone you actually respect. You've been taught to treat your shadow like a burglar in your mind, so you lock the doors, turn off the lights, and pretend you don't hear footsteps. But here's the twist. The shadow isn't breaking in. It's been living there. And the longer you avoid it, the louder your unconscious has to knock. Carl Jung said it best. What stays unembodied turns blacker and denser. That density shows up as anxiety, overreactions, and weird emotional weather. It shows up as triggers you can't explain and moods that hijack your day. Not because you're broken, because you're divided, and every division leaks power until you choose integration. So no, your shadow isn't the enemy. It's the message you keep deleting. Think of your shadow like a smoke alarm, not a house fire. The noise is annoying, sure, but it's trying to save you, not shame you. When you feel that sudden spike of anger, envy, or bitterness, pause. That spike isn't random. It's information with emotion attached. It's your nervous system saying, hey, there's something here you buried. And buried things don't disappear, they ferment. They become sarcasm, people-pleasing, secret resentment, and fake calm. They turn authenticity into performance, and you start living like an actor. But the moment you face it with self-awareness, the alarm becomes guidance. That's where healing begins, right where you stopped looking. Here's the part most people miss. The shadow often protects something tender. Under rage, there's fear. Under control, there's grief. Under perfection, there's shame. So when your shadow shows up, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask, what is this trying to protect? And what is it trying to tell me? That question turns a breakdown into a map. And it keeps you from making your shadow the villain of your story. Because the truth is, you didn't choose your earliest wounds. You chose the armor that helped you survive them. Now you're older, smarter, and ready for transformation, not just survival. So you don't need more self-hate. You need more honesty. Let's make it practical, because theory is cute until life hits you on a Tuesday. Tonight, write down 3 moments you felt strongly triggered this week. Not the big dramatic moments, the small ones that stole your peace. Then finish this sentence for each. I reacted because I feared that. Or, I reacted because I felt unseen when... That's self-awareness in motion, not a motivational poster. Next, pick one safe person and practice a tiny dose of authenticity. Say, I felt defensive there, instead of pretending you were fine. That's integration, owning what's in you without acting it out like a toddler. And yes, your ego will complain. It always complains when it loses control. Now, here's where it gets almost comical. Your mind hates ownership, so it plays a magic trick called projection. It's not me, it's them. Your shadow becomes a flashlight you aim at other people's flaws, and suddenly you feel righteous while the same wound stays untreated. That's why some people collect enemies like they're collecting Pokemon cards. They're not battling the world, they're running from their own shadow. But you're not here to run, you're here to wake up. Because the fastest path to healing is noticing what you keep blaming. And once you see that pattern, your triggers stop being curses and start being clues. So tell me, What's the one type of person who irritates you instantly for no reason? The fastest way to meet your shadow is to watch what makes your blood boil. Because your triggers aren't just pet peeves, they're pressure points. That instant irritation, that "I can't stand this person" reaction. A lot of the time, it's projection. Your unconscious tossing a hot potato. You're not only seeing them, you're seeing you in a costume you don't like. And yeah, that stings, because self-awareness isn't always cute and cozy. But it's powerful, because it turns your emotions into a GPS. Most people live life blaming the road. You're learning to read the signs. And once you understand projection, you stop arguing with shadows on the wall. You turn around and look at the light source inside you. Here's a metaphor that'll stick. Imagine you're walking with a backpack of paint. Every time you refuse a feeling, anger, envy, need, ambition, you spill a little. Then you bump into someone and you swear they splashed you. But the truth is, you were already leaking. Projection is emotional paint transfer. You see your unowned stuff on other people. That's why the same type of person keeps showing up in your life. It's not bad luck. It's a lesson with a repeat button. And the lesson is usually simple. Own what's yours. Carl Jung warned that what isn't embodied gets darker. Projection is one way it gets darker, because it hides in plain sight. Let's talk about the two biggest projection magnets, envy and judgment. Envy isn't evil, it's a clue to a desire you've been shaming. And harsh judgment is often a cover for a trait you secretly fear in yourself. You hate loud people. Maybe you buried your voice to stay safe. You hate selfish people. Maybe you never learned boundaries, so you resent them. You hate confident people. Maybe you're starving for permission to shine. This is healing with the lights on. Uncomfortable, but honest. And honesty is the doorway to integration, where the shadow stops running your life. Because when you admit what you want, your triggers stop controlling you. They become teachers instead of tyrants. Now let's make it practical, simple enough to do, powerful enough to shift you. Pick one person you judge often. Yes, that one, the easy target. Write down the top 3 words you'd use to describe what bothers you. Then ask, where does this live in me, even in a smaller form? If you wrote arrogant, maybe you've been suppressing healthy confidence. If you wrote needy, maybe you've been starving yourself of support. If you wrote fake, maybe you've been performing instead of living with authenticity. Then do one tiny action that embodies the opposite, consciously. If you fear being needy, practice asking for one small thing: advice, help, a favor. That's self-awareness becoming behavior, real transformation. And listen, don't turn this into a self-attack. That's the old habit. The goal isn't shame, it's clarity. The goal is integration, not self-destruction. Because when you stop projecting, you stop wasting energy fighting strangers in your mind. You reclaim your power, your peace, and your emotional bandwidth. And here's the kicker. When you own your shadow, your relationships change fast. People who once triggered you start feeling neutral. And neutrality is freedom. It's your nervous system finally exhaling. But there's a deeper layer, because your shadow doesn't only show up in people, it also shows up in your patterns. The same choices, same pain, different packaging. So before we go there, tell me, what kind of person triggers you instantly, and what do you think that says about you? There's a moment when your shadow stops whispering and starts shouting. Not because it hates you, because you kept ignoring it like spam mail. You know that feeling when something small happens and you explode? That's not anger issues. That's pressure that had nowhere else to go. Carl Jung nailed it. When the shadow isn't embodied, it becomes blacker and denser. Picture a closet you keep stuffing with junk. Eventually the door won't close. One day it bursts open, and now it's everywhere, on the floor, in your face. That's the unconscious. It doesn't vanish, it accumulates. And the darker it feels, the more it's been waiting for your attention. So if life feels heavier lately, don't panic. Get curious. Avoidance is sneaky because it often looks like being productive. You stay busy, you stay useful, you stay distracted, and you call it discipline. But deep down, you know the truth. You're running a high-speed escape route. Scrolling, snacking, overworking, overhelping, same strategy, different outfit. And every time you dodge a feeling, your shadow learns, okay, we'll try louder. So it upgrades the signal: anxiety, insomnia, numbness, sudden irritability. It shows up as a mood that doesn't match the moment, or that weird sense that you're living your life, but not inside your life. That's not laziness, that's disconnection. And disconnection is what makes the shadow feel like a monster. Here's the metaphor. Emotions are like water in a river. When you let them flow, they move through you and leave. When you dam them up, the water gets stagnant, thick, dark, and toxic. That's what dense feels like, stuck energy in your body and mind. You don't just feel sad, you feel heavy. You don't just feel stressed, you feel trapped. And then your triggers get sharper because your system is already flooded. This is why small disrespect feels like betrayal. This is why tiny criticism feels like rejection. Your shadow isn't overreacting. Your nervous system is overloaded. And once you see that, healing stops being mysterious and starts being mechanical. Let's make it practical with a simple pressure release routine. For 7 days, give your shadow a scheduled appointment, 10 minutes a day. No phone, no music, no distractions, just you and the truth. Set a timer and write, "What am I avoiding feeling right now?" Then write the raw answer, even if it sounds petty, dramatic, or messy. That mess is your unconscious finally getting air. Next, name it out loud. I feel embarrassed. I feel jealous. I feel lonely. Naming is embodiment. Your brain stops treating it like a threat in the dark. Then do one grounding action. A slow walk, a shower, breath work, or stretching your shoulders. Because integration isn't only mental, it's physical. And here's where it gets interesting. As soon as you stop avoiding, patterns start revealing themselves. You realize you don't just get unlucky in relationships, you choose familiar pain. You don't just have bad bosses, you tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict. You don't just procrastinate, you freeze when something threatens your identity. The shadow isn't random, it's patterned. It repeats until you learn the lesson. And the moment you're willing to see the pattern, you stop being a victim of it. That's where transformation gets real, fast, because you finally have leverage. So let me ask you something that might sting a little, in a good way. What's the one situation in your life that keeps repeating like a bad rerun? Because the next topic is where we follow that thread, and it changes everything. Most people think the shadow is made of bad traits, but a lot of the time it's made of old pain wearing new clothes. It's not that you're angry for no reason. Your anger is standing guard. It's not that you're cold. Your coldness is a coat you learn to survive in. And if you've ever said, "This is just how I am," you might be describing armor. Armor looks like confidence, control, sarcasm, independence, perfection. But underneath it, there's usually a wound that never got a proper goodbye. That's why healing feels emotional. You're not fixing a personality flaw. You're finally touching the part of you that got left behind. And that part? It's been waiting. Think of your shadow like a loyal security dog. It barks, it bites, it lunges, because it believes danger is coming. And sometimes that danger is just intimacy, honesty, or being seen. If you grew up having to be strong, your shadow learned need is unsafe. So now, when someone gets close, your system tightens up. You become busy, you get critical, you pick fights, you disappear. Not because you don't care, because caring feels like stepping into traffic. That's the unconscious doing its job, based on outdated information. Your shadow is protecting a wound with strategies that used to work. But what protected you then can imprison you now. Let's name a few common wounds and the shadows that grow around them. If you felt abandoned, you may develop control, because surprise feels deadly. If you are criticized, you may develop perfection because mistakes feel unsafe. If you were ignored, you may develop loudness, or the opposite, invisibility. If you were betrayed, you may develop suspicion because trust feels foolish. These aren't bad behaviors. They're survival responses that became habits, and habits become identities if you never question them. That's why self-awareness is so important. It separates you from your coping style. You are not the wound. You are not the armor. You're the person who can finally choose integration. Here's a practical exercise that hits deep without being dramatic. Write down the moment you first remember feeling not safe emotionally. Not the biggest trauma, just the earliest memory that still has a sting. Now write, what did I decide about myself in that moment? Maybe you decided, I'm too much, or I don't matter, or I can't trust anyone. That decision becomes the script your shadow keeps defending. Next, write, what would a wise mentor tell that younger version of me? Not fluffy positivity, real reassurance, real truth, real protection. Then do one action that challenges the old script. Ask for help, set a boundary, tell the truth gently. That's healing. Tiny, brave moves, repeated. And now pay attention, because this is where your life starts to feel lighter. When you see the wound, you stop demonizing your shadow. You stop calling yourself broken and start saying, oh, this makes sense. And this makes sense is the beginning of compassion. Not the soft kind that excuses everything, the strong kind that changes behavior. Because compassion lets you face the truth without collapsing into shame. And once shame loosens its grip, your authenticity comes back online. But here's the twist. Even when you understand the wound, the mask might still feel safer. Which leads us straight into the next topic, because the mask has a cost and it's bigger than you think. So tell me, what do you do when you feel emotionally unsafe? Do you control, disappear, joke, or shut down? The mask is expensive, not in money, though it can cost you that too. It costs you energy, sleep, peace, and that quiet feeling of being at home in yourself. Because every time you hide what you feel, you split into two versions of you. There's the public you, who's fine, chill, unbothered, productive, and the private you, the one your unconscious keeps dragging into late-night honesty. That split is exhausting, like holding a beach ball underwater all day. You can do it for a while, sure, but your arms shake and you resent everyone around you. And when the ball finally pops up, it doesn't rise gently, it explodes. That's why people who never complain often burn out the hardest. The mask doesn't make you strong, it makes you silent and tense. Here's a metaphor you'll feel in your bones. Living with a mask is like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. At first you tell yourself, it's fine, I can handle it. Then you start walking weird. You start limping emotionally. You avoid certain conversations the way you avoid stares. You smile through discomfort, but your body keeps the receipts. Tight shoulders, jaw clenching, random headaches, that wired but tired feeling. Your nervous system doesn't care about your performance. It cares about truth, and when you ignore truth long enough, your triggers get louder and your shadow gets denser. Not because you're failing, because you're forcing yourself to live out of alignment. Authenticity is not a personality trait, it's a form of oxygen. A lot of people wear masks that look good. The nice mask, always agreeable, always supportive, never needing anything. The strong mask, independent, stoic, I don't need anyone. The funny mask, joking your way out of vulnerability like it's a sport. The competent mask, overachieving so nobody notices you're scared. But every mask has a hidden tax. It blocks connection. Because people can't love what they can't reach. They can only applaud what you perform, and applause feels nice until you realize nobody actually knows you. That's when loneliness hits, even in a room full of people.